So hi, today we're diving into a website SEO audit for Natalie Ford. So hopefully by the end of this episode, we'll have identified some simple, quick wins for Natalie's website. So welcome, Natalie. It's so great to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, before we start, a little question I always ask before these audit episodes is if we were to meet in 6 months' time and you were telling me about the amazing things that were happening with your business, how would your website be helping with that?
Well, at the moment, it literally just sits there. I had a website because that's what people told me that I needed to do, but I literally do nothing with it. It just sits there. But I would very, very much like it to be an integral part of representing me online, but also to attracting new clients to me.
Fantastic. That sounds like a good plan, definitely. And I think there's definitely that thing of we kind of feel like, oh yeah, I have to have a website. And I think it is really important in business, but it's not just about having it there. We don't just want a digital brochure. We want it to be there and actually working for
Yeah,
us.
an active part of what I do rather than just
Definitely.
relying on social media
Yeah.
is to actually have that as a working
Yeah.
part of the business.
Brilliant. That sounds good. So, before we start, tell us a little bit about your business and how your website currently kind of sits within your marketing activities. I think you've kind of answered that anyway, in terms of it doesn't
Well,
really.
that'll be a very short answer. So I'm a productivity and lifestyle coach. I work with successful women who are either running a business, running their own business, or have got a successful corporate career. They feel like their career or business has just taken over their life. They're drowning under the amount of things that they're trying to juggle, and they just feel like they thought when they got to this point in their life, everything would feel easy and that they'd reached where they wanted to go. But now they're starting to question, go, is this it? When was the last time I got a chance to do something for myself? It just seems to be the business 24/7. So I help them to kind of prioritize and organize their time so that we can look at what is it that you want to create in this season of your life, and what are the containers that make up that, and then how can we prioritize and organize your time to make sure that the time's been spent in the right areas.
Brilliant. That was amazing. Definitely all need a bit of that, definitely. So
There's
are
so
you
many women that
working,
don't.
is it one-to-one coaching? Do you have online offerings as well? How do you kind of work with people?
Yeah, so I work one-to-one, and I do either a 90-minute session for people that just feel like they just need a little bit of help and support in organising their week. They just feel like they're firefighting through their to-do list. So I offer them a 90-minute session. And then again, one-to-one, I do a 6-month coaching program, which is for people that really feel like their life is completely unbalanced. They can't see how they're going to unpick it, and they can't see how they're going to make changes. So I work with them for 6 months, helping them to reframe the way that they're looking at time, reframe the way that they're approaching things, and then offer them planning and review sessions throughout the 6 months, as well as a way of accountability and helping them through the challenges that they will face over those 6 months.
Okay, great. Fantastic. And so with marketing at the moment, how are people finding you? What other sort of marketing activities are you doing in your business?
So predominantly posting on social media. I've stepped up my networking over the last couple of months. So getting out there, meeting new people, and guest speaking, going in and doing masterclasses for people and training sessions and on podcasts.
Brilliant. I think this is amazing. That's, for me, building those relationships is always top, above the SEO, above websites, definitely above social media, but
I
anything
think
where we
I'd
can be.
felt, yeah, I think I got into that little rabbit hole of, right, I've just got to post on social media and everything will just happen. But then it's like you say, you're just sitting in the office on your own, staring at a screen.
Yeah.
So actually getting out and networking online, but then also in person as well. I've just really, really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that no algorithm can take that away from you as well. So you're meeting people, you're building those relationships, and that's always going to be there for you, I think,
Yeah.
really. So, yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll have a little look at your website and just see if we can find some quick wins. Here we are. So, have you ever done anything with SEO? Have you ever sort of given it any thought? Have you ever sort of set up any analytics tools? Do you know how you're doing on Google at the moment? I'm guessing the fact that you sort of say that you're not feeling like your website is contributing to your marketing.
No, I had somebody to build it, and then that's it really.
Okay, fantastic. Have you got Google Analytics and Google Search Console set up?
Interesting question. I don't know. I
Well, we
use
can have a
Google
look.
for everything. So I use Google Drive, Google Sheets, all that sort of thing. But as for Google Analytics, I don't know.
Well, let's have a little look and we can see if you've got a Google tag on your account. So what I've done here is I've just right-clicked and I've just gone to inspect. And what that brings up is some little web developer tools. And if we hit Control or Command F, I think that will work on a Mac as well. On a PC, it's Control F, and type in a G. What we can use, you usually see this by doing G tag. If you're using WordPress, I would expect, I can't see a tag there. So let's have a little look. It might be an old one. It might be, so that suggests that you haven't got it set up. Anyway, either way, you're not using it. So
Okay.
what you could do is you could have a look in you, if you've got one particular Google account that you have set up for your business, you could have a look and see if there is an analytics account already set up in there, or ask the person who set your website up whether they set it up, because if they didn't, then that's one thing to do. I tend to say out of the two, I would say if you're thinking about getting more traffic from Google, start with Google Search Console. So these are two free tools from Google that anyone can use on their website. And what it ultimately does is it helps you to understand how people are finding you and how Google sees your website. So Google Analytics is the one that's more well known. It's the one that more people have heard of. And it's great to have that as well. What that will ultimately do is tell you how people have come to your website. So whether they've come through social media, through email marketing, through organic search, through Google and other search engines, and then it will tell you what they've done once they're actually on your website. Whereas Google Search Console, which is the one that when you're thinking about SEO is actually more valuable to have, is another free tool from Google that will tell you how Google sees your website. So it helps you to understand what Google knows and understands about your website. It will also help you to understand what search terms you're showing up for in Google, and probably more importantly, what you're not. So just before we came on, I Googled you and your website didn't come up. I couldn't see it in the top. There we go. You're so a little bit further down. It certainly wasn't coming up near the top, and it wasn't a sort of definitive answer of yes, it knew exactly who you were. And considering we have been on calls before recently and I've looked at your website before, if there was a strong correlation that Google knew who you were and knew that we'd already spoken, I would expect you to see you higher on the search results. So I would always say that's quite a good place to start, is making sure that the people who know about you can find you. And that can be just making sure that your online presence is sort of linked everywhere as well. So when I actually looked, I clicked on this LinkedIn link here and it was a broken link. So, is it going to go in now? It went in now. That's really strange. That was obviously just a Google thing this morning. It went in. So it's got your LinkedIn there. So that is a good thing. But yeah, that's one thing I would be thinking about. So if you can set up Google Search Console, which is really easy to do, I've actually got a little short course on my website. So if anybody is hoping to try and set up Google Analytics and Google Search Console, then you can go and have a little look at that. I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. But that will actually help you then to quickly get it set up and to start just using it to understand what Google is associating with your website, really. So in terms of actually getting that information across, if we hop over to your About page on your website and look at what you've got set here. So I'm going to use one of my little SEO plugins that I use in Google Chrome. This is a one called AIO SEO. It's a really good little plugin for just having a look at what you've got set up on your website and what you haven't. I use it multiple times a day. It's a free thing that you can just download with Google Chrome in the Chrome store. And so you have got there on your page title, you've got that about me, Natalie Ford. You could potentially expand that. So do you have like a tagline, or have you got sort of an easy description that you could use? I don't know what you've got on your LinkedIn. Let's have a little look what you've got on your LinkedIn for your.
What, just a sentence or?
Yeah, just something you could add in there. Oh, so this is what happened before where it came to this. So I'm not quite sure why. It might be because I right-clicked on it, maybe. No. Okay, so there is definitely some kind of issue with that. That's a bit strange.
That's weird, isn't it? That it worked
Very
once
strange.
and then.
Yeah. So that's what happened. Yeah, that happened a few times. I'm not quite sure why that happened, but yeah. So if on your bio in social media or on LinkedIn, do you have like a short description of yourself that you, so like for me, my thing is Jules White, website and SEO marketing consultant. You would
Well, it would just be productivity and lifestyle coach.
Brilliant. Okay. So even adding that in, so if you went into your page title in your about page, and if you're using WordPress, there's different plugins that you can use for SEO, but Rank Math is quite a good one to use. And that then you can see all of your pages in your main WordPress login screen. You can see what you've got set for your page title and description. And so, but it's something that you do in the back end. You would then set this page title. Ideally, you want it under 70 characters, definitely. I tend to say around 60, 65 characters is good for the page title. So you could add into there Natalie Ford, productivity and lifestyle coach. So I would maybe take the me out. So about Natalie Ford, productivity and lifestyle coach could be a better page title here. And then the page description it's up to 156 characters is where it starts to get truncated. But it depends if you've got all W's versus all I's, then obviously it's going to get cut off a lot sooner than if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not a sort of definitive thing, but that's why I normally say around 135 characters in your page description. And again, you would add that in the back end of WordPress and add your page description in there, which is, if you look at a Google search results page, I can show you what these are. So your page title would be this thing that's in purple here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it helps people understand what that page is about. The page description is like the thing that helps to get them to actually click through to that page. So that's where your page description, you can make the most of that.
Yeah.
It does need to align with what you're talking about on that page. And sometimes Google doesn't honor the page description that you put in there. So if Google thinks actually that page isn't about this, it will just take a snippet from the page and show that there instead. So that's something that's also worth knowing, is that Google doesn't always honor our page descriptions that we put on.
It does its own thing.
It does its own thing, as Google likes to do, really. So think about that in terms of what else do you need to have on this page so that it helps Google to understand about you and to be able to show you up in search results, really. So that's the about page, actually showing up for people who know you. I definitely would think about that. Then if we're looking at your homepage, you can, again, do the same thing here. So page titles and descriptions seem to be something that's missing on probably, if it's missing on that page and that page, let's have a look at your work with me page as well. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the other thing. Because you've got Natalie Ford in here, Google may be a bit confused about what page is the best one to show up for if somebody is Googling you. So with all of the content on our website, we want to also not only think about what we want to show up for, but also think which page of our website is the most relevant to show up for that as well. Because otherwise you can end up with your content competing against itself. So this is something I see a lot, where people will think about the keywords and the phrases that they want to show up for on Google, and then they'll mention them on every single page of their website and not have one definitive page that they're kind of fully optimizing for that search term.
So it's better to have one page fully optimized rather than try and optimize every single one with the same wording.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, because if you think about it, when Google ranks web pages rather than whole websites, so Google's job is to go through and scan the whole of the internet and then work out all of those pages on all of those websites, which is the best one to show up for that search query. So that's a hell of a job to do. And actually, yeah, I mean, how do you decide? Like, if it's not clear, and if we don't help Google with these things, then it draws its own conclusions, and that might be the same conclusion, really. So I would definitely say that. I say before you go into your website and start making changes, even just start with something like an Excel spreadsheet. I have a keyword map and planner on my website that does this sort of job, where you can actually go through and list all your URLs for your website, all the pages of your website, and think about each one and what do I want this page to show up for. If you're kind of just doing this to begin with, I would start with 3 to 5 key pages of your site. So, and think about, like, your homepage is definitely one. I would say your about page as well is important for you. And then think about the pages that are closest to the sale. So your work with me page, if you've got a freebie sign up page, maybe, where actually you know that if people get onto your email list, then you're really good at selling to them through your email list, or you're trying to grow your list, then maybe you would focus on that page. But probably I would say the 3 to focus on to begin with for you are your homepage, your work with me page, and your about page. And think about getting those optimized. Think about, okay, what do I want these pages to show up for, and getting those optimized. So putting your page titles and descriptions in there, making sure that you're mentioning that key phrase that you're trying to get that page to rank for throughout the content as well. because that's often the thing is that I will see people where they've got amazing content on their social media pages, but then they're not mentioning those things on their website really. And I think it's not until we start thinking about it strategically of, okay, what am I trying to rank for? Where am I talking about that? And then that's how you can then start making changes really.
And with keywords, is that just guesswork, or is there somewhere that you can find out what your keyword should be?
I mean, I would always say start with the things that you know. Start with the like even the basic things that you know you should be showing up for productivity coach. Do you mainly work with women?
Yeah.
Yeah, so thinking about like women's productivity coach, those kind of things, start with those foundations first. When I was taught SEO, I was always taught start with keyword research and go in and do keyword research until your
Yeah.
eyes bleed. And I used to do it like that. And then we'd still be in a point where, wow, hold on a minute, that's not working because I'm not showing up for the basic things. So like for my website, before I can start ranking for more specific SEO keywords where it is a more specific term and there's less competition out there, I've also got to show that I am an authority on SEO as well. So you can't just go in and actually, well, you can, but I would not suggest going in and starting looking for those long tail keywords until you've actually got the basics in place as well.
Okay.
So this is all about building up your website as an authority on women's productivity. What do you need to add in that will help Google and people? And, we're talking about Google, but ultimately when people come through, when people find you, or even if you're sending people there, we want them to understand those things about you as well. So if it's not really clear as soon as somebody comes in, immediately what you do, then either it's just a case of tweaking that messaging so you're talking about it in a slightly different way, or actually adding that messaging in if it's actually missing from your website. Yeah, so that's a really good question about the keyword, but I would always say start with your own brain first, then ask ChatGPT to help, and you'll definitely get some great suggestions from ChatGPT. But even just sitting there and spending half an hour thinking about what are the things that if somebody was talking about me and what I do in my business, what are the things that they should be saying? What are the words that they should be saying? You could even look at your testimonials and things like that. And what are the things that people are already saying about how I've helped them?
Yeah, because it's like keeping it simple, isn't it? Rather
Yeah.
than, like time management, productivity.
Yes, absolutely. And also the problems you're solving for them as well, those kind of things that you can then use that language throughout your pages as well. The solutions that you offer, the benefits that you bring. But even that is sort of somewhere a little bit further down the line. That those basic terms of Google understanding what you do, understanding what you're an authority on. One of the things you can do is also ask ChatGPT what it understands about you. And then that might spark a little bit of thing of, okay, if somebody asked ChatGPT, who is Natalie Ford, what would ChatGPT be saying about you? And if that's not clear, if that's not saying what you want it to, then thinking, okay, how can I help AI bots understand about me as well, really?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to sort of dive in and think about that and think about how can I get ChatGPT to recommend me? But actually the first step of doing that is showing up in Google searches, really. So as much as there's all these rumors that SEO is dead and dying, but actually the things that we need to do to show up in AI searches are the fundamentals of SEO first and foremost, really. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, start with that. Start with thinking about making a plan outside of your website before you dive in and start making changes of what do I want to show up for? Which page of my website is most relevant for that? And how do I need to optimize that page? And one of the things you can do when you're looking at those search terms, if you're not sure what is the right kind of page to show up for that, then whatever term it is you're trying to show up for. So if it was productivity coach and whether people would actually be searching for that, or how can I be more productive, or those kind of things, then you can type that into a Google search and see what Google delivers. If Google delivers a load of blog posts, then your sales page is probably unlikely to rank for that, because Google understands that when people type that search into Google, they're looking for informational answers, really.
So then would you use that then to think, well, if that's what's coming up, then blog post is something that I should be looking at doing?
Maybe to help to raise your authority around the topic.
Yeah.
But I would be thinking, okay, what kind of searches would I put into Google that when people are looking for a coach in relation to what you do, what would they be sort of
Right.
typing in, really.
Okay.
That's approach it in that way. So as I say, I would say work out what you want to show up for, think about relevant pages, but then also think, okay, is what I want to show up for a relevant answer with my work with me page? So yeah. Is that clear? Does that sort
Yes.
of make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Any questions at this point?
I don't think so. That's just really interesting. Like you say, rather than just putting on the title, everything matters, doesn't it? Rather than making it just look pretty,
Yes,
everything matters. And it's,
absolutely.
yeah, things like the title never occurred to me that that's what people will see first. And if that's not interesting, then they're not going to click any further, are they?
Yeah, no. And we've got to make these titles and descriptions compelling.
Yeah.
We've got to make it a reason why they would want to click through to our website and ultimately get the answer to their question, which is what they're typing into Google or Bing or ChatGPT or anywhere, really.
Yeah.
So with that, so when we're thinking about this, if you're creating new pages on your website, say you did decide to create some blog posts or something like that, the other place that can be really helpful to get those keywords into is the URL. I would say don't change any URLs that already exist on your website. Because then you get all sorts of problems with redirects and that kind of thing. But actually, if you were adding in a new blog post around, like, say, for example, productivity fails for women or something like that, if you actually had that in the URL, that can make a big difference. It's something that I see it time and time again when I'm looking at my keyword tools, that actually those pages are showing up, and then you look at the page and it's not particularly relevant, but the URL does seem to still make a big difference, really. So thinking about that, so you add it into the URL, page title, description, and then when we look at a page, we talk about page hierarchy. And if anybody has, like, long-term listeners of the show will have heard me talking about page hierarchy over and over again. It's one of those things that our website builders kind of set us up to fail with this a little bit, because we tend to use these heading tags and the hierarchy of the page. We tend to use it to style the page rather than actually thinking about the back end code. So if you think of your web page like an English essay, you would normally have one main heading. Ideally, we just want one of those on each page. And ideally, if that can contain that keyword or key phrase that you're trying to get this page to rank for, then great. If it can't, if it doesn't sound natural to a human, then don't put it in there. I would always say go with what works for a human. If you were reading it out loud and it would sound weird, don't put it in there. But ideally, that would naturally be able to be in there. So ideally what we'd see, if we were looking at, again, the back end of your website, we would see one H1, and then within that we'd see a couple of H2s, or maybe even more than that, a few H2s, and then maybe within the H2s then you'd have other subtopics within that, which would be your H3s. But you should never see a H1 followed by a H4 followed by a H3 followed by a H2 sort of thing. So does that make sense? Because I often feel I explain this and just whether it actually makes sense of that.
Yeah, I think so. So I've got the heading, and then I've got mini little. So what you're saying then is it's got to flow rather than jump around and go from one to another and then back up again.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because what this does, this helps the bots that are reading through your page, whether it's Google bots or AI bots or whatever is reading through your web page, it helps it to understand the hierarchy and helps it to understand the text on the page much better. And this, at the moment, this is still how the bots are actually reading your pages. One of the reasons that we have these hierarchy on the page is to help people if they're using screen readers as well. So for accessibility reasons, if somebody's using a screen reader, then it would tell them what these headings are as well, which it helps then them to understand that page. So if somebody was describing that page to you and you couldn't see the page, then that would help you to understand that this is the heading. These are the subheadings within the page there, really. And it's worth thinking about that with the subheadings. So again, if you're planning out a page, think about, okay, what's the main topic of this page? What are the subtopics? And sort of then go from there, really, because ideally you only want H2 headings that are actually subtopics of within this page. So like this is your work with me page, and these would be subheadings: planning for productivity, action and accountability. Are they the names of your programs? So I potentially would try and have something in there that would help. If you took that out of context, you wouldn't necessarily know what these are. So whether that's work with me, like whether you change work with me to coaching programs or something like that. You have something in there that adds that context in, so people would know that like under the bracket of, so maybe it's you have work with me page, under that you have a H2 heading of coaching programs or something like that, and then these names would then be H3 headings within that, really, which is just one way of approaching it, but it's just so that you
no, that makes sense, because I think that's the thing, isn't it, when you're creating something, because you know what it is, then you think, oh well, that's just common sense, that's obviously what it is, but they're not. If to people that are just landing on there and don't know anything about it. So absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Donald Miller and his story brand framework and his recommendations for laying out websites. It's literally within 3 seconds. We want people to know what you do, how you're going to make their life better, and what they need to do to get it. And if it's not clear when they land on that page, if there's any kind of like, just if you're making them burn mental calories to work out what you're doing, then that is where you'll lose people, really. So yeah, just thinking about that. And this is something that ChatGPT can massively help with as well. If you can try just putting the URL of your page into ChatGPT. If that doesn't work, because sometimes it throws a little wobble and it won't do that, you can just copy and paste the copy from the page, or you can even take a screenshot of the whole page, fire that into ChatGPT, and it can then understand that, really. So yeah, that's the other thing to be thinking about in terms of actually where to put your. So this is the one I was looking in terms of where to put your keywords as well. If you can have that target keyword in at least one H2 heading within the page as well, naturally, if it will naturally go in there, or synonyms and related terms in that can make a difference. And then you also want to have it ideally within the first 250 words and within the last 250 words on the page as well. These are the places that you can sort of get those keywords in. And then ideally as well, images can really help people understand what you do. But if you can have some images in there and you have that in the image alt text, which you'll see in the back end of your website builder, when you upload an image, you'll see a little box that says alt text or alternative text. Again, this was designed for screen readers to begin with, but this also helps if you have that keyword in there within that alt text, that can help. And sometimes people sort of think about, okay, well, am I supposed to be describing the image in the alt text? And you absolutely are. So I think this helps you to actually think, is that image relevant for this page or this block of text that I'm working on? And if it's not, then don't put it in there. I always have the example of if it's a salon website and you're talking about massages and then you've got a picture of a pedicure next to it, then that immediately is like a disconnect, really, between what you're saying in the words and what you're saying with the visuals there. It's worth thinking about that as well. Is there anything you could do to add some images into this page, which helps to break up the text for a start, but it also helps people we can process images so much quicker than we can process language or process.
So obviously you've got the image in the background there with the colours and things. So instead of that's just block text, isn't it? So you mean, would you have an image of that relates to productivity rather than that, or would you still have something like that and then images to break up the text?
Yeah, you can have this as a styling thing on the page. That's fine. It's not really, other than visually, it's not really adding anything to the page. It's not really adding anything in terms of actually getting your messaging across. So that would be the only thing I would be thinking about. Okay, what is this, with anything on your website, thinking about what is this contributing? Is this helping? Is this helping me to get my message across? And if
rather than actually, does it explain? If somebody just sits there and just flicks on it, does that picture give them a really clear image of what I can help them to get?
Absolutely. So either you're helping them to understand the process, or you're helping them to understand where they want to be and how they can get there, or it's an image to represent that happy person who's got the result that they want. So I definitely think there are other things you could do to use that space better, really, especially with this top area of the page. Anything that's above the fold here, this is the most valuable real estate on your website, really. So definitely think about that. And talking about that and about that area, I would maybe think about, because this part of your website is so valuable, I would maybe think about making this menu area a bit smaller. So let me come over to my mobile responsive version of this. And let's go to your work with me page. So what I was seeing on here, what just made me sort of look at this. One of the things that Google doesn't like is small text. So again, it's all about accessibility on the page. So when I click on your menu, this looks tiny. This writing here looks tiny, and it is still pretty small on my mobile. I always say as well, make sure that you're not making people get their glasses out to read your website. So Google doesn't like text font size below 16 pixels. I still feel 16 is still pretty small. I would that maybe be using that in your footer menu for like a copyright notice or something like that. So I wouldn't be making anything on my website less than an 18 pixel if it's something that's important. And depending on what font you're using, it might even need to be bigger than that, really.
Yeah.
But certainly I'm looking at this on my mobile as well, and they're very it's small writing, and it's also not too much room for me to be able to tap my fingers on it as well. And as much as that's a usability thing, it's also something Google will take that into account when Google is looking at your website. If it's something where your website doesn't appear to be user friendly and mobile friendly, most importantly, then that can harm your SEO as well, really. So that's something you could do. And you could do that with using WordPress. You can do that site-wide, probably, depending on what theme you're using.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be too much of a problem to do that. But yeah, when we're looking at this page, obviously, if you're looking at this on mobile, this is a proper wall of text. So anything you can do to break that up. So maybe if you did have a different image here, that would maybe look a little bit more visually appealing. And also thinking about things like even icons or like tabs, even chevrons and things like that can sometimes just break it up. Even emojis, I use emojis fairly regularly on my website. Those kind of things that actually, if you can find the right one, and certainly icons, if you're not keen on the whole visual appearance of emojis, then Canva, you can get some great icons on there. And it's just all ways that you can get your message across a little bit more clearly, really. So yeah, we were talking about the how it was looking, that sort of this header section here, really. So I would think about that. And that's what I went over. I get so distracted. I went over there to look at this menu at the top here. So obviously it's a bit different in mobile, but that's still taking up sort of a fair amount of that page. So I would maybe think about just making your logo a bit smaller, maybe popping it over into the corner here, or just making it so the logo isn't making that navigation bar really big. Again, I would be upping the font size on this navigation bar as well. And just make sure that that's all really clear as well. Make sure that there's nothing in there that kind of then is just like a stumbling block, really. Anything you can make it where you can make it easier for people to take action really on your website.
Do you find that people tend to look at, if I think about the amount of time I spend on my laptop looking at things versus my phone, very often, even if I've got my laptop there, I'm still looking on my phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to be thinking of our websites mobile first, really. Google has a mobile first policy. So if there's two websites and everything else being equal, one is mobile responsive and one's not. And mobile responsive means it looks good on a mobile, that the image is resized, the text is the right size and things. Then Google will always go with the mobile responsive one and put that one at the top of the search results, really. So, yeah, I would definitely be thinking about that, because we tend to build our websites on our using our desktop, but actually then look at everything on your mobile. So I would always assume that as well, really. So yeah, I mean, ideally what we want it to look good whatever people are looking at it on, whether it's mobile, desktop or tablet. We want it to look good. This attention bar at the top here, these can be really powerful, having an attention bar, but I would take away your Facebook link here. You've got that in your footer already. And maybe even the email and the phone number in here. I would sort of think, okay, especially if this was your homepage, what action do you want people to take? Is it that you want them to sign up to your email freebie, or have you got something that you want them to join into? And get that in the attention bar there, really.
Yeah, so have a reason for it rather than it just be there because, we'll put that there.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the top. And I can see as well now, it's funny looking at your own website, isn't it, after? It's almost looking at it in a third-party way, which is really helpful. But I can see how much wasted space is there, that in all of that space, it doesn't really say anything.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's one of those things that actually once someone points it out to you, it's like, oh, okay, of course, of course I need to talk about what I do, and of course I need to like make it visually clear. But it's something that until you spend some time on it, then you don't necessarily notice that, really. And as you say, a fresh pair of eyes is definitely beneficial. So I think sort of the main things to focus on are definitely upping your font size. I think that's something that could make a big difference to the usability, and that all helps with SEO as well. Taking that step back and working out what you want to show up for and what are the most relevant pages of your website for that, and then sort of mapping that out as well of, okay, this is what I'm trying to rank for, this is the page I need to optimize for that. And then just, yeah, adding some visuals in. I think those are kind of the three things that you could really focus on, really, is just making sure that you get a little bit of this text broken up, adding visuals, images, icons that you can add in here, and then up in that font size, really. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Any questions or anything?
Is there a font that is more user friendly? Obviously, everyone's got their own fonts that they use, but is there a font for websites that is more easy on the eye and easier to read? And
I mean, a font that I see used a lot is Montserrat. That's quite a safe one. You see it on lots of websites. Lots of Kajabi websites have that on, really. But there's nothing wrong with the fonts that you've got here. I would say that these fonts they're very readable. They're not, they're not going to cause any problems. I think you just need to up the size of them, really.
Yeah, just make it so that you don't need your binoculars to see.
Yeah. and then once you've got that in place, then that, font choices in terms of what it's representing with your brand and things is something that you would do as part of your brand strategy. But actually, there's far more important things to be doing right now.
Yeah,
really.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, do I need to spend 3 hours working out a font?
No.
So yeah.
And I would say if you're going to do that and you're serious about that, then I would work with a brand, like a graphic designer or a brand strategist, and do your branding properly. Not that it's not proper, but in terms of if you're thinking you want to invest in time and money in fonts and working out what's the best for your audience, do that as a proper process somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it's one of those things of either do it properly or don't bother doing it.
I think it really is. When you have non-offensive fonts on your website anyway, you've got fonts that look fine on your website right now. So that's not something I would dive into. It's a bit like changing all your colors and then it doesn't really actually make a difference, or getting a new logo and it doesn't actually make a difference.
Especially based on what I do is help people to organize and prioritize their time. Is that the best use of my time, to spend half a day working out fonts and colors when they're fine as they are?
Absolutely, definitely. I love that. That's very, very important. So before we finish, I'd love you to give yourself another little shout out, Natalie, and let everyone know again what you do, and most importantly, where they can connect with you and find out more.
So I'm a productivity and lifestyle coach, and I help you to organize and prioritize your time so that you can feel like you're getting more done, but you're actually creating more time in your week so that you can spend time doing the things that you want to do as well as the things that you need to do. I am on all social media, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I've just developed a quiz as well. So if you're wondering why you keep running out of time or what the issue is, we've all got a unique relationship with time. So I've developed a quiz, which I'm very excited about, which shows you what your unique relationship is with time and the areas of development for you to feel more in control of it.
Brilliant. That sounds amazing. That's something you could put in your attention bar across the top. Take our quiz. Think about the benefits of them taking the quiz. What are they going to get in terms of the benefit of it? And then put that in there as in that attention bar at the top of your page there, really.
Brilliant.
I think that could be great. Adding that quiz in there could be really good. And then hopefully that will help to get some excitement in there. I would even maybe, just as a quick aside as well, I'd maybe add that as like a banner on your homepage as well. So take the quiz and have it as quite a big sort of splash banner somewhere on your page as well.
Yeah, that's a really good idea to put it on there as a banner, and first and foremost, take this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So if this episode has made you think about your website and working on your SEO, and you want to get started with this, then you can head over to my website and you can get my free beginner's guide to SEO. You can download that there. So thank you so much for listening, and thanks, Natalie, for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye.